Hello, my name is Darnell F. Miller.
Where and when were you born, Mr. Miller?
August 2nd, 1923, Salem, Oregon.
So how old are you right now?
94.
Do you feel like you're 94?
No, sometimes I do, yes.
Physically, what is it like to be 94?
I don't know. I can't walk too good anymore. Sort of bad to be 94 and trying to walk around.
What branch of the service were you in during World War II?
I was in the 8th Air Force.
What specific units?
493rd Bomb Group, 861st Squadron.
And what was your specific role?
I was a radio operator.
On what kind of plane?
B-24 bomber.
Which were also known as what?
Liberator.
Were these medium, heavy bombers?
Heavy bomber.
And how many missions did you complete?
3.
What happened on your third mission?
Got shot down.
And what happened to you, Mr. Miller?
I had to bail out when we were over the channel. I was trying to reach England. And we had a change of orders. I bailed out and blew me back into France about 5 miles.
What happened to the rest of your crew?
They weren't aware right at first that we three in the front of the plane bailed out, and they bailed out later on, except for one who got killed.
What was the reason he was killed?
Well, he went back into the plane to talk to the pilot, and never got out when it landed.
And where did the plane eventually end up?
It crashed on its own.
In the channel?
No, on land. We had lost 2 engines on the right side, and so these other 2 carried it around back into France.
What was the cause of the engines being shot up?
Well, we got hit with 88 millimeter flak.
Also known as what? Anti-aircraft fire?
Yeah, anti-aircraft fire.
What happened to you after you landed in France?
Well, Frenchman, or I'm not sure if he was French for sure, but he helped me back and until the German guards had spotted me coming down, and they came out there, and so I took off for the barley field and got away for a couple hours out there.
And what did you do in the barley field?
I just laid there hiding out until the guards they finally tracked me down.
And what happened to you then?
Well, they wanted to know where my parachute was, but the Frenchman helped me bury the parachute, but we located it, and they took it on top of their bicycles. And then they walked us through the town, across maybe 10 miles of farm country. I had hurt my ankle severely on that deal. I must have hit a rock or something. And but they walked me for 10 miles on that bad ankle.
Where did they march you to?
Well, over to a road, and we were picked up by a German officer who was in a staff car, him and his driver, and they picked me up and took me up to the nearest town.
And then?
It sat for a while, and they moved me from one car to another car that was parked in front of us, and I couldn't hardly believe it, but my engineer of my plane was in this car, soaking wet. He landed in a river.
What was that like to see someone that you knew?
I couldn't believe it. It was just like a miracle.
From there, what happened to you all?
They stuck us in a little room. It was a local jail for prisoners of war. And we stayed in there all day and clear up into the night. I kept hollering for a doctor.
Because?
My ankle.
You wounded your ankle on the descent after you...
When I landed, I must have hit a rock.
Were you wounded from the anti-aircraft fire?
No.
So, you're hollering for a doctor. Do the Germans give you one?
Well, not until about 8 o'clock that night. I hollered all day and all evening, and he finally came. I couldn't believe it. He spoke perfect English.
And then what happened to you all?
Well, he took care of my ankle. He gave me a shot of morphine, which was a blessing. I slept all night.
Take me through, how do you guys get to your destination, your prisoner of war camp?
Well, first, they loaded us the next morning in a truck and drove us to Brussels, Belgium, put us into a huge building that was prepared for prisoners of war. And we were there for 2 weeks for interrogation and so forth.
What kind of things did they interrogate you about?
Well, they wanted to know everything about us. I only told them my name, rank, and serial number.
Did they ever physically harm you?
No.
Just backing up a little bit, when was your plane shot down?
14th of June, 1944. That was 3 days. That was a few days after D-Day, which was the 6th.
So when you drifted back over after the plane was shot down, you just missed the American lines.
How's that?
You mentioned when you bailed out, you drifted over back to France.
Yeah.
And so D-Day had already occurred, and you went over the Americans and landed in the German territory.
Yeah, I didn't see any Americans. I didn't when I went back because we were near the front, you know.
Tell me about the 2 previous missions you went on. Do you remember what those targets were?
I can't remember the places. The first mission was D-Day, and we saw all the ships going over there, landing on the beach. But then we went up into the clouds, and our target was probably an ammunition dump someplace in the back, away from the coast. I don't know exactly what it was. The second mission was an evening mission, and we went out, and we hooked. It was a bad day, and we got separated some way or another from our regular group, and we hooked onto another group, and we were tail end Charlie going across there. And that evening, when we came back, it started to get dark. And we got separated from this group that we were hooked onto. And we were trying to find our way back to our base. and everything was blacked out. We didn't know why it was blacked out, but everything was blacked out. And it got dark on us, and so we sent our navigator sent up some flares, and we were located by a landing. Actually, it was a British small aircraft base, and they landed us on a steel landing, and it was a steel thing instead of an asphalt driveway, and it just shook the plane almost all to pieces. We thought it was made for fighters, but we landed on it, and we were running short of gasoline and everything else, and we would have been in an awful mess. But when we got to the base, they put us up, but we lost our brand new bomber, B-24 bomber J. They took it away from our pilot. The next day, they made us go home to our regular base. That was an awful, scary day. And that was probably about the 10th of June.
On the two missions that you went on, did you see other planes? I mean, the three missions you went on, sir, what was more disconcerting, the anti-aircraft fire or the German fighter planes?
We saw no fighter planes, only ACAC, 88 millimeter ACAC.
On all three missions, you never saw the fighter planes?
No.
So, pretend I don't know. What was the German anti-aircraft fire, and what was it like?
It was terrible. We had to throw out tin foil to foul up their radar. Me and my other waist gunner, I was a waist gunner when I wasn't on the radio, and we would stand back to back because we had safety belts, around us to protect us. They were like football or baseball catchers, protectors.
The nets.
Yeah, they had steel in them, and it would take care of that.
Oh, like the cage.
Yeah. No, we wore these outfits, and they had steel in them,
Oh, you mean flak suits?
Flak suits, that's the right word.
So, I mean, what did it look like, the anti-aircraft shells, when they would explode?
They would explode, just, you'd see them off in the distance. It would be a black bunch of them go boom, 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 boom.
I mean, is the plane shaking?
No. It was just going along normal.
On the three missions you were on, did you see other planes getting hit from anti-aircraft fire?
I never did pay attention to any what was going on with other planes, so I really didn't see anything.
So tell me about your role as a radio operator. What are you supposed to be doing?
Well, in training, we would have regular routines that we would have to follow as far as making calls and different things like that. But in combat, I, instead of being in my radio desk right behind the co-pilot, I would be flying waist gun on the right side.
So when you were a waist gunner, could you see the bombs dropping and hitting the ground, the targets?
We could see them dropping, but we couldn't see what they would hit. Exactly.
How cold did it get up there?
Pretty cold. We wore heated flying suits, and they were like a bed heater, you know. They had wires on all the way around to keep your body warm, including your feet. They had them down. In fact, I didn't even wear my shoes. I had these heated shoes on, you know. They were like slippers.
So what did you do when you bailed out?
Well, we were trained to wear our shoes tied to the harness by the shoestrings. It was it's mandatory whenever you flew, you tied your shoes on. So in case you had to bail out, you always had a pair of shoes.
So talk to me more in depth about the mission where you guys were shot down. Do you remember what your target was that day?
I don't remember exactly what the target was.
Did you guys make it to the target?
And
you
yes.
were on your way?
Yes, we had dropped our bombs.
And then what happened?
We got hit over the target, and we lost. We started to lose one of the engines on the right side, and that finally stopped. And then we had to drop out of formation, so we were a target for the Ack going over to the coast.
And so did they hit you guys multiple times?
I have no idea how many times they hit us. All I know is that we started losing the gas out of our tanks on the right side.
And then what?
Well, we were out of formation. We got to the coast. The pilot told me, he called me up and he said, "Miller, get up here and send an SOS out." So I started to head for the plane, and of course I didn't have my parachute on. I had it laying on the floor. And I got to the bomb bay door, and I started to go through there, and I thought, oh, I better get my parachute. So I got my parachute, and I grabbed a dinghy in case I had to get in the water. And then I walked through the bomb bays all the way up to the front of the plane. And when I got there, oh, by the way, on the way there, the three guys from the front, the bombardier, the navigator, and one of the other guys were coming to the back of the plane because they knew they were going to ditch, because when the pilot says, "Miller, get up here and send an SOS," they knew that we were going to ditch. That's and try to be picked up by the British over there in England, if we could get over across the channel far enough. So when I got there, the engineer of the plane jumped down and he says, "We're going to bail out." So I started to argue with the guy. I thought, bail out? I just got orders from the pilot to get up here and send an SOS, so I'm here to send a SOS. He says, "No, we got it changed. We're going to bail out." And he opened the bomb bay doors there in the front, right where I was standing, and here I looked down into the water. We were about 14,000 feet, I think, in the air. And I looked down in the water and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I haven't even got my chute on. I was holding in my hand, and also the dinghy. And so I hooked on my parachute on the front. It's a front application. I hooked it on, and I couldn't get the dinghy. I was so nervous, and I didn't know what to do hardly. And so I just dropped that dinghy. I figured, well, I had a Mae West on, and that ought to save me if I hit the water. And so here the engineer was yelling, bail out, I'll be right behind you. And so I dropped right out, bailed out, and within a few minutes after I got organized and the thing opened and everything, and I was swinging back and forth, and I never did see my airplane again. I never saw any of my plane, any planes or my plane at all, and it took me probably 15 minutes to get down. And I landed in right next to a farmhouse in the barley field.
How did you steer from landing in the water to land?
I didn't steer anything. The wind was blowing about 30 miles an hour on shore, and I just let her go.
Did you see any other crew members with their chutes open?
No, I didn't see anybody or my engineer or anything.
Just tell me again, did everyone survive?
All but one.
And who was that?
That was Cohen. His name was Cohen.
And what was his position?
He was, what was he? He was a nose gunner.
And do you know the reason why he didn't survive?
Well, the boys told me after that, see, there were 6 in the back in ditching position, and the plane was turning to the left, and everybody knew that it was turning to the left and couldn't figure out why. And Cohen jumped up and said, I'm going to go up and talk to the pilot and see what's going on. And he went on up into the plane. Well, it wasn't too long after that until the rest of the guys realized something really serious was happening, and they were getting close to the ground, and so they all bailed out through the window and through the bottom hatch in the back. And Cohen was up in the airplane, and when it crashed, he got killed probably during that crash. And anyway, that's what the Germans said. We don't know if it was true. He was Jewish, by the way.
You think there's a chance that he made the jump and they killed him?
I think that maybe that was what happened, but who knows? We'll never know.
And the pilot escaped because Cohen went to go talk to the pilot.
Yeah, well, the pilot had already been out. Us up in the front, the pilot, the co-pilot, and the engineer and myself, the 4 of us were out, and there were 10 on the plane.
Sounds pretty suspicious.
What was suspicious?
That Cohen went to go talk to the pilot, but the pilot was gone. It sounds like maybe the Germans did kill him.
Well, it's possible the crash did if the Germans didn't.
I interviewed one other veteran who bailed out, and there was a Jewish crew member, and he made the jump, but he was killed once he hit the ground. They captured him, and then they killed him because he was Jewish.
Yeah, they saw it on his dog tag.
So, explain to me a little more. What did you feel when your plane was initially hit?
I don't know.
Like physically, did you feel like, did it go to dive or?
No, the plane went on because we had 3 engines going still.
But it was just a lot slower.
We dropped low altitude. You know, we dropped out of formation. See, we bomb in formation.
So, moving forward again, sir, you've been interrogated by the Germans. Where do they send you after those interrogations?
We got on a train and we went down through see, I forgot the name of the town. But anyway, we went to a little town near Frankfurt on the Main, and by train. And we went to a little place called Wetzlar. And I don't know if it's a town. I can't know if it's an outskirts of Frankfurt or what it was. But there was a lot of Red Cross supplies there. And we were met there in the Frankfurt station by hundreds of civilians that were really harassing us bad. In fact, the German soldiers had to keep the civilians away from us with bayonets.
What were the civilians doing to you all?
Just yelling Chicago gangsters, Roosevelt gangsters, New York gangsters, all kinds of, and spitting on us and everything else.
And what was the reason why they were so vitriol?
Well, we were bombing Germany like crazy. And they were pretty mad. Frankfurt was beat up pretty bad.
What do you remember about the destruction of Frankfurt?
I didn't see what, you could only see what you could see from a vehicle when we went over to Wetzlar. Or we might have walked over to this little area, Wetzlar. But we got outfitted with overcoats, all kinds of Red Cross supplies, clothing, shorts and underclothes and all, long john underwear, all that kind of stuff. And then we got on a train and we went up to Kiefaida, which was a little prison camp, Stalag 4. We got there maybe 1st of July, close to that kind of a date.
And how long were you there?
About 8 months.
Talk to me about life in Stalag 4.
Stalag 4 was like a miracle what was coming after. It was a just established prison camp. They put us in there. The bunks were 3 high, and there were about 24 guys to a room, 10 rooms to a barracks, 10 barracks to a compound. I was in compound A. There was B and C and D. But we filled up A, and I was there for about 8 months until the Russians were coming after us.
And then?
Well, about December, probably the 4th or 5th, we started to see unbelievable sights coming into our camp. Prisoners that have been walking for maybe 2 or 3 weeks from further east.
What did they look like?
They looked miserable and they looked worn out, and the German guards and their dogs were also worn out and filthy and dirty. And they went into compound B, and we felt pretty sad for these guys. Oh, I couldn't even hardly believe it. They were walking without shoes and just with burlap sacks wrapped around their feet, that kind of stuff. And within 3 days, by the 6th of February 1945, we were on the road. They gave us orders one night. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, we're leaving out of here. And the Russians are coming, and we could hear their guns and everything. And Hitler doesn't want the Russians to liberate us at all. and so we're going to move you west as fast as we can. And so on February 6th, at 8 o'clock in the morning, the doors opened and out we went, and we walked west. At night, they put us up in barns. This lasted for 3 months until the end of the war. So February the 6th, 1945, we were on the road marching west.
What was this known as?
The Death March, or the Black Death March. There was a lot of names for it, but the Death March is what it was really called.
And talk to me about the difficulties of marching. Tell me about the food situation, the weather.
They give us a Red Cross parcel, a full one that wasn't ever opened, on the way out. That was one of the first things we got. They were pretty heavy, and we're already loaded down with all that we could carry.
Like what?
We made knapsacks out of our long john underwear, and we loaded them up with everything we could carry that we thought we wanted. If you wanted it, you carried it, and if you didn't want it, you left it.
So tell me about the weather conditions.
It was cold all the time, raining and snowing and 20 below zero.
How did you guys keep warm on the march?
Well, while we were marching, we could keep warm because you were exercising. We wore these long overcoats. You've seen them, GI overcoats. We all had one. We got him there when we were in Frankfurt or Wetzlar. And these overcoats and stuff kept us warm. At night, we slept in barns. If we were lucky, the farmers that owned these barns were ordered to feed us. We would generally get 2 potatoes boiled a day. Some places, not every place, but most places they would give us some potatoes. That's about it. And no breakfast and no lunch. Just walk west.
So talk to me about the casualties.
I don't know if you dropped out of formation. We walked maybe 5 abreast, and maybe we'd have 50 to 150, maybe 200 or 300 in a group, and they would put us they'd set us up in a barn at night to sleep in. Sometimes we didn't even have a barn to sleep in. We just slept outside.
Did you see guys who just couldn't march anymore?
They disappeared. We didn't see them anymore, that's all.
But in your area, when you were marching, I mean, did you see guys falling?
No.
I know that for some of the veterans, the Germans would execute a prisoner to set an example.
I never saw that.
What motivated you to keep going, to keep marching?
I just knew that I had a lot of strength, and I was in the best shape. I was in a lot better shape than most guys because of several reasons. But a lot of guys fell out. We never did hear from them. We wouldn't see them. I didn't see any guys fall out.
Were you ever strafed by the Allied plane?
No, some of our guys were too, but we weren't. Thanks the Lord.
Going back to your time at the POW camp, did anyone die from disease or starvation?
Well, we had one of the barracks, was barracks 4 in our case. Most of the sick guys were set up in that barrack. So I don't know who died over there or not. But in our room, there was 24 guys, and we had nobody that died. We had some guys that went over to Barracks 4 that we never saw again, so I don't know what happened to them. But nobody died in our room.
Did you ever get sick?
Well, I was sick half the time, yeah.
With what?
Dysentery and that kind of stuff.
And talk to me about what it was like to have that kind of severe case of dysentery.
Oh, it was just terrible. And especially on the march. Oh, it was just pitiful, guys. The guys were just sick all the time with some kind of dysentery.
On the march?
On the march.
What would they do? Or were they able to stop?
No, you just load your pants, and when we had a chance to get in the brush or behind the trees or something like that, they would let you out to clean up, and so you could just take grass and whatever was around, leaves or anything else, and try to clean it up. It was a mess. It was terrible.
Did you have to do that yourself?
We didn't have a nurse.
I'm saying, did you personally have dysentery on the march?
Oh, all the time, half the time.
Did you ever get to a point where, I mean, you guys just felt like you were animals?
Worse than that, we couldn't have been any worse. Filthy. I got one shower in 3 months.
Where was that?
Well, it was in some town, and they took us over there to this building, and it was a huge building, and they made us take all of our clothes off, and they burned them, and they gave us more clothes, and we took a warm shower, and we didn't know anything about gas chambers, and we would have really been scared, because these pipes were hanging down, and we were all in there naked and under a shower head, and when the warm water came out, we couldn't believe it. It felt so good. But if we'd have known that that's the way they gassed people, I don't know what we would have done. But we didn't know anything about gassing, so we did get a shower, and that was the only time we got any shower in 3 months.
Talk to me about how you were liberated.
That was, everybody, of course, was liberated differently. In my case, we were bivouacked on the 2nd of May, 1945, near this town of Kittlitz. It's a little tiny town, and we were in the outskirts of town, all bivouacked out there. That's a time we didn't get a barn. But it was up into May, and the weather wasn't that bad. And so we were up early and fixing some coffee and stuff and having a little fire. And we were in the outskirts of the city, so there wasn't too many people out there. But there was a farmhouse right next to the road that went through the town. And this guy's barn was on fire. And so we ran over there and was helping this farmer get his stock out of the barn. And all of a sudden my buddy John Barley John, we called him. He started yelling, "Oh, look down the road!" And so we looked down this road, and here was a convoy of 8 military vehicles coming up the road, and it was one of those British tanks with wheels. Had a big gun on the front of it and a turret. And there was a guy sitting in this turret with his head up and everything above the turret coming up the road. And so we ran down there like crazy. And it was early in the morning. And, it was, "Hello, Yank. How you doing, Yanks? Have a cigarette and have this and that. Have some crackers, have this and that." And boy, they just poured out the food and the cigarettes. And after about half an hour of hugging and everything else, we were so thrilled. As far as I was concerned, right then at that point, we were liberated.
How much weight did you lose?
I probably weighed, I usually weighed about 175. I probably weighed down to 120 or something.
And talk to me about your experience with lice in the prisoner of war camp.
In what?
With lice?
Lights?
Lice. Like in your head?
Oh, lice. Well, there in that camp, we didn't get too much of them.
What about bed bugs?
We had something. I don't know. I think it was lice. But the first night I was out on the death march, we slept. Well, the second night I think it was. We slept with goats. Got a lot of fleas. Got a lot of lice.
Why did you sleep with goats?
Well, because the barn was full, and there was a couple of extra sheds over there, and we took the one that had the goats in it.
When you were in the prisoner of war camp, were there any escape attempts made?
Well, there was a couple. One guy ran over to the wall, and they shot him dead. And you had to stay a certain distance from this fence and where the towers were with the guns on them. On the march, I never saw anything where a guy got shot, except one day, about 6 guys. We had just come out of a forest. And we'd been walking all day, and all of a sudden, these guys had, I should say it this way, the guards, some of them carried rifles and guns. Some of them just had dogs. They call them hoot fearers. And these guys had got way out in the field, so far out we could hardly see them. And the guards finally spotted them, and they sent the dogs after this guy. There was 6 guys. And that's the only attempt that I ever seen. And boy, they beat the tar out of these guys and when they got them back in order.
What did they do to them?
I don't know. They just beat them up, and then they got into formation and walked along with us again.
So those 6 guys were from your group, and they attempted to escape?
Yeah.
And then the dogs got them back?
Yeah, the dogs pinned them to the ground is what happened.
Did you see this all happening?
Yeah, we could see it. It was quite a ways out there, but we could see it.
And then when they got back, did you see the actual beating?
No. I didn't see it.
And then when you were in the prisoner of war camp, did you see that man try to climb over the fence?
No, but we heard about it.
Talk to me about the food you would get in the prisoner of war camp, please.
In the camp?
Yes, sir.
What we got for breakfast was 2 cans of, for our room, 2 cans of hot water. And that way, if we had any dry, powdered coffee or coffee, that we can make coffee or tea. And that's it. And lunchtime, we got a bowl of soup, like potato soup. Usually potato soup. I mean, potatoes were plentiful over there, so our diet mainly was potatoes. And then at night we would get potatoes, a couple of potatoes or something.
Would there be bugs in the food?
No. Whenever we got bread, you didn't know what was in there. It was usually
sawdust.
Well, we heard that they were half sawdust, the bread. This situation wasn't after I was liberated, but one day we stopped by a river, and it was ice cold river. Oh, it was so cold. A lot of the guys, they wanted to go in, and the Germans let us go in the river. But it was just too cold for me. And I just sat on the bank, and I took off my upper long john, and I started picking lice on the inside seams. These lice would hide out during the day and in the seams of the thing. And I found about 85 graybacks, and I just squished them with my thumbs on the thumbnails.
Show the camera how you would do it.
I would just smash them like this. You catch them and then you get them on. These were pretty good sized lice too, and I'd just roll them like that, smash them, throw them down. But most of the time we just tolerated them. I mean, you couldn't. We never had a chance to sit down and actually do that. You know, just that one time.
So tell me, when you first got to the prisoner of war camp, some of the veterans I've interviewed have told me that they would keep the new prisoners away from everyone else until they had verified who you were by asking you certain questions.
Well, it didn't take too long when we came into the camp. This one guy, Big Stoop, he was an SS guy, I think. It was camouflaged to be in the Air Force. But he was a security guy, and they would take care of all that when you first come into the camp. They never did it after that. Now, what was that deal about those 2 planes shot down?
Yeah, can you tell me that story? So I'll ask you the question again. Just put your head down a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's perfect. When you were in combat, Mr. Miller, flying your missions, did you ever see planes around you getting hit?
No, but on the first mission out, after we got above the clouds, I told you I could see all the ships going over there for the invasion. Well, we got above the clouds, and we were flying just by ourselves. Well, we were in formation, and all of a sudden, my nose gunner yelled out, "Look at 3 o'clock." Well, that's the window I was at in my airplane, and I took a look out, and here was a plane from up on the first squadron that dropped. He just dropped right straight down, and he knocked out another plane right below him. And when I looked out, there was two planes, just motors were flying out and wings were flying all over the place, and they dropped into the clouds. Well, it happened to be that there was 10 guys in each plane. We lost 2 planes. We lost 20 men, and nobody shot at us. We didn't see any combat planes or no airplanes or anything else. It was just malfunction where this one in formation 1 they stalled out and dropped right into another plane. That was 2 planes, not combat action at all.
What was that like?
Oh, it was here. This was our first mission that we ever flew in combat. And it was really shaky. Boy, I'm telling you, it really knocked us for a loop as far as our group, our airplane. Just to see that, it was awful.
And can you tell me about what did you actually see? Which part? Did you see the plane hitting the other plane?
Yeah.
I mean, and what is that? It's just a big explosion?
No explosion. It was just both airplanes falling apart. They were twirling around, and parts were flying all over the place. Motors and wings, and that's all we could see. And then they went into the clouds, and that's it. You didn't see anymore.
When you were in the prison camp, how did you guys pass your time? I mean, how did you pass your time? Did you go on work details or?
No, we were all sergeants, buck sergeants up in this camp because we were all in airplanes and we were flying in combat. So we had time. We had time in this camp to do things. Now, sooner or later, there was a Red Cross. They brought in a lot of stuff for us to have, the Red Cross. Then there was this, I forget what it was. It was like, man, I forgot that. I can't think of it. There was another group that was allowed in there that was other than Red Cross. Mm-hmm. And they brought in all kinds of writing stuff, books, things like that, even musical instruments.
Oh, the YMCA?
No, it wasn't YMCA. Yeah, it was YMCA. And they were big and were allowed by the Germans to bring things into our camp. And they brought musical instruments, and we formed a band and everything else.
Did you play in the band?
No, but I did sing.
You did?
Yeah, I sang in the quartet. And we had a guy in our barracks, and he was a song leader in religious songs in a church. He knew every song. He knew every popular song. And he found out that I used to sing, bass in a quartet in church. And so we started a quartet, and we sang all the time. Every day we practiced.
Do you remember any of the songs you sung?
Well, I could sing them if somebody would start singing them, but I can't remember them just offhand. We sang all kinds of religious songs, and we sang Negro spirituals and all that kind of song, which was pretty popular in them days.
So, your Purple Heart, is that due to your foot injury?
Yeah.
How long?
I guess. I was notified after the war.
How long were you a prisoner of war, Mr. Miller?
Well, it was just less than a year. I was first captured on 14th of June. It was liberated May the 2nd, 45.
So, did you have a difficult time readjusting to civilian life after the war?
No, I didn't have the. I don't know that I did. I don't think I did.
What life advice do you want to give to future generations?
What was that again?
What life advice do you want to give to future generations?
Well, I don't know. You just got to live life hoping that we don't get into another war. That's all we can do is just go.
No, but I'm saying, if you could talk to your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, what is some wisdom you would like to give them?
Well, keep their life clean and above reproach, and concentrate on it every day you live.
Were you afraid of getting killed when you were overseas?
I didn't seem to be. I thought I was indestructible.
But did you think that you might get killed after you were a POW?
I don't know. I always thought God had his hand on me for some reason.
What would you want to say to all the men who were killed overseas in World War II?
It was pitiful. It really didn't have to happen. I think they could have got around it if they would have tried, but I don't think that we could have stopped it. I think Japanese and the Germans were destined to rule the world. I think that's what they wanted to do, and they would have done it if we hadn't have fought.
Mr. Miller, what kind of person do you want to be remembered as?
Oh, just a normal person, a person that loves his family, a person that thinks that God had his hand on him all the time.
But I'm saying, in the future, after you've passed, and your friends and your family, they think about you.
Yes.
Give me an idea of the kind of person you want them to think of you as.
I want them to think that I was a good husband and a good grandfather and great-grandfather and so on.
Great. Actually, what was the name of the man who was killed in your plane?
Cohen.
You remember his first name?
See, it's this guy over here.
It just says Sergeant Cohen. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, tell me, what kind of person was he?
He was a jolly kind of a person. He was always joking. In fact, we named our plane after him, which was a joker.
Is that right?
Yes.
How old would you say he was when he was killed?
Well, he was probably 21.
Nice guy?
No, he was the best. We really enjoyed him. Everybody was really disappointed when he got killed.
And tell me, before a mission, when you were back at the base in England, I mean, what do you think about, before you go on a mission? I mean, are you nervous? Are you scared?
Well, we practiced every day just before June the 6th. And we had practice missions, and we came into the briefing room real early, say 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, on D-Day, we all came in there, and we thought it was another briefing, just like all the other briefings that we've had, even in the United States. We had a briefing every time we went on a mission, practice mission. Well, on D-Day, we were all in there, and we figured, here's another thing. We'll get a briefing, and we were all like we were asleep, because we get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and get ready to go on this mission. We had to eat breakfast and everything else. And we were all sitting there, and the officers came out, and they had this great big map always, they would open up, show us the target. Well, this morning on the 6th of June, when they rolled back the cover on the big board, all of a sudden France came up. Boy, did people come alive. I mean, we got up right now and concentrate. And they said, gentlemen, this is the day we've been waiting for. This is D-Day. This is where we're going to start bombing the Germans. And we're going to make a landing. Wow, did we come alive.
Just give me a salute, Mr. Miller.